Hey, buddy, I'm making this little video after today's decision by Joe Biden to select Kamala Harris. Wanted to start off with saying that she and Joe are not my favorite candidates. I voted for Bernie. I voted for Bernie the first time around during the Hillary campaign in 2016, and I voted for Bernie in the last primaries, and he didn't win. There's some realities that we have to take into account in terms of politics. One, the reason Joe Biden won against Bernie Sanders was that the African American community in the South, in particularly, came out to vote for him strongly. That type of loyalty, that type of vote, strategically speaking, needs to not only be rewarded, it needs to be taken into account. If Joe Biden were to choose, for example, Elizabeth Warren, or any of the other white candidates, male or female, it would be a big slap in the face to African Americans, to Latinos, and to non whites in the country. And we're living in a very different United States than 2016, particularly after the George Floyd protest. There's a reckoning going on nationally, and black people in particular, but non-whites in general, are demanding seats at the table of power, and there's nothing wrong with that. I actually see that as positive, but that needs to be taken into account. Joe Biden knows full well that he didn't really have a lot of choice here. This is a time for historic changes. This country needs women leaders. This country needs black leaders to be at the seat of the table as well, and it was non-negotiable. He knows full well that during 2016 there were areas, I believe in Michigan and in other what do you call it, battleground states, where literally Donald Trump won by 3, 4, 10,000 votes, and there was over 200,000 black voters who stayed home, who did not vote for Hillary. There was a lot of Bernie voters who were disaffected who stayed home. So there was an understanding, and there is an understanding in the Democratic Party that this can't happen again. There can't be a what do you call it, this idea that there could be a campaign completely of white politicians and risk that non-whites and people who are very progressive stay home. And that could happen again. There's actually a lot of people talking about that. That's actually the subject of my video. I know there's a lot of people who are disappointed it's Kamala. I'm not that disappointed. I am not 100% hot on her. I'm also not 100% against her. I don't think that this is a person that is completely unworthy of getting a vote for the vice presidency. And I want to talk about that, about the meaning of politics. There's this understanding, or this reality among a lot of my progressive folks, purity tests, I like to call it. It applies to everything that they see in politics. You could be really good on racism issues, you could be really good on gender issues, but maybe you're homophobic. And therefore, you're canceled, you're silenced, you're humiliated, you're destroyed, you are socially attacked on the social medias. Social media is weaponized against you until you apologize and accept where you're wrong. Or you're very good on LGBT issues and you're very good on gender issues, but you know what? You just happen to, I don't know, get tired that black people in ghettos have bad behavior patterns, so therefore you're racist, and now you must be canceled out and you must be silenced and you must be called out on Twitter. I mean, that particular culture of silencing, cancel culture, of humiliation, of campaigns of pressure, etc. It leads people into this what I like to call this, alleyway, this no exit alleyway of purity tests. How pure of a progressive or how pure of a leftist are you? And if you are not 100% pure or not even close, 90% pure, then you don't get a vote. And that's not how politics works, okay? Politics is not about, when you give somebody a vote, it doesn't mean you like the person. It doesn't mean you want to have a drink with them. It doesn't mean you want to marry the person. You don't want to go on a date with them. Politics is an advancement of strategic interests. I'm going to say that again. Politics, or when you vote for somebody, is an advancement of strategic interests. We live in a country of 320 million people. That's a wide variety of political perspectives, particularly in a country that historically has had a very weak tradition of leftist politics. Unions used to be kinda, and not even, not even the strongest unions, but it used to be stronger back in the early part of the centuries. We've lost union membership. Very few, I think it was under 11% of Americans were unionized. So we're talking about 90, something like almost 90% of Americans are non-unionized. This is not a country that naturally flows to the left. And progressive needs to understand that progress in this country is gonna come slowly through constant pressure. When these type of incidents like the George Floyd, as killing, by the police, occurred, these are the moments where there's a push forward, where things can happen, where the stars align. Not only is there enough sustained protest on the street, there is an interest on the part of certain figures in the political class, in the powerful classes who have economic and political power, and understanding that there is instability in the social order and that they must do something to bring stability back into the social order. That is why you've seen a lot of politicians saying we have to end police abuse, that we have to end police brutality, that we have to start taking into account black lives again. It didn't that type of thinking, it never happened before. The idea of Black Lives Matter was not important to this country 5, 10 years ago. It was a minor movement, just like every other movement of protest and that has happened. I mean, how many people have died? How many African Americans have died and nothing's come through it? But something about the George Floyd case finally made people, move forward. That's what's called in politics the objective conditions. When the objective conditions align, then political activism can be had for certain things. I went to protest in Puerto Rico in the summer of 2019. Puerto Rico is by and large a very sleepy nation. It takes a lot of abuse. Politicians get away with a lot of crimes, and people are shafted and robbed at every turn. But for whatever reason, that telegram chat between the governor and his friends and his buddies was just enough, the perfect, what we say in Spanish, we have a term, la copa que tumbó la copa, the drop of water that knocked over the cup of water. Let's put it that way. We don't know. Nobody was expecting that was going to explode. It was surprising to the whole nation. In retrospect, we understand that the people are frustrated with all the situations that are happening in Puerto Rico, economically, politically, socially, etc. But nobody knew that was the one moment that the nation would unite and take out the governor. So sometimes things just happen. Revolutions just happen. Social movements just happen. Okay. So in this country, we are living right now through a historic moment of proto-fascism. We've known this already for the last 3 or 4 years. And in this proto-fascism, there's enough people in this country who have awoken politically to the realities that under this administration, women, LGBT people, people of color are under attack. Immigrants are under attack. And that they have to organize against this proto-fascism, right? Then we have the assassination or the killing of George Floyd. And that has completely changed the game, politically speaking. Maybe if George Floyd would have not happened, maybe it's yes or no. Maybe Joe Biden might have thought, I don't feel a lot of pressure to have to select a woman, first of all, because of Hillary Clinton's achievements as a woman candidate, but a black woman or a woman of color. He might not have chosen one. He might have decided to go with another Tim Kaine type of character. But now it's not an option, especially with an understanding that if it weren't have been for the African American vote, he would not be the presidential candidate. He owes the African American community a representative. And not only just at the VP level, at the administrative executive level, in his administration, if he wins, he's going to have to put a lot of African Americans in different positions. There needs to be that type of acknowledgement. So why do I speak about these situations? Because, again, it goes back to the issue of purity tests. Kamala Harris has a very successful prosecutor career, has a very successful senatorial career. I've seen her in action. She does great questioning. I think generally she is on the right side of history. I think generally she shares a lot of the same goals we do. But this is a woman also that has done what she has to do to climb the Senate and the elite circles, within the Democratic Party and within California. And part of that is also playing ball. And playing ball means that you have to prosecute criminals. So yeah, she probably sacrificed marijuana marijuana users or other soft criminals, and there's people in prison that probably are in prison because of our efforts. And there's a lot of people that are angry about that, but that's the nature of the game. It goes back to what I said about this being a nation of 320 million people. You're not going to get this, for all my progressive friends, you are not going to get a Jesus figure. You are not going to get Jose Mujica, for example, the Uruguayan president who a lot of leftists love because he's so anti-corruption, he's so perfect, and he's so dignified in the way he speaks. He's not like a dictator of the left. He's pro-democracy, and he had a very successful term as a president. I mean, he's almost like a perfect, that's the progressive leader we want. We want a Bernie figure, somebody like Jose Mujica. That's not going to happen because not everybody in this country believes in a Jose Mujica type of lifestyle or politics. So knowing full well that we have all these pressures of the right, all these pressures of the left, and all these pressures of in between, center left, center to right, you're not going to get people who are very right, center, and center left to generally go with a Bernie type of politics. As much as I want it, the most we can is we can converse, we can dialogue, and I can try to convince you why universal health care can help you, or why you should have a living wage, or why we should have public housing, or why should college be free, these type of things that we all want. But we can't obligate people to get to that. And there's a lot of people, even family members of mine, who may agree with my politics. In fact, I have one in mind that comes to my mind who agrees completely with my politics, but just thinks Bernie didn't have the gravitas, or didn't have the public persona, or the charm, or whatever we like to call it. Some people say je ne sais quoi. The one factor that makes the difference between somebody being a great politician candidate and a historic leader. Okay, some people just have it. I'm going to give examples. Obama, whether we like it or not, he just has it. Bill Clinton, whether we like it or not, he just has it. Fidel Castro, whether we like it or not, was a dynamic figure that he was loved throughout the third world. A lot of people didn't like him because he was a dictator, but he was a very dynamic, charming person to even his enemies. Even his enemies report about that. Okay, so some people just have it, to have that, that ability to capture not just intellectually people, but at the base level. I like this guy, or I really feel excited about this candidacy. Okay, I know we are not excited about Joe Biden. I know we're not excited about Kamala Harris, but again, we are not voting because we like them, and we're not going to get a Bernie vote, and we're not going to get a pure candidate. It doesn't work like that. Here's how it works. During World War II, we had this very clear focus and goal. Everything else was secondary, third, and fourth. We needed to defeat fascism. On the other side of the fascist table was a dictator just as bad as Hitler, named Stalin, on the Russian side. We had a racist, conservative, he wasn't a leftist, a conservative racist in Britain named Winston Churchill. And we had Roosevelt on the side of the USA, and later Truman when Roosevelt passed away. That were the cards handed to the world at that moment. Imagine if at that moment Russia would have not come to an agreement with the USA because it had problems ideologically with the USA. Because Stalin said, you guys are not communists, so we're not going to lie with you, so we're going to stay with our non-aggression pact with Germany, and we're not, and in fact, they did. They did a non-aggression pact. They didn't want to make an alliance with the Allies until it was too late, until the Germans made the mistake of invading them. So once the Germans invade them, we have Stalin, a communist, allying himself with a conservative racist who would have never allied with a communist, and a somewhat center-left leader, Roosevelt. And these were the cards that the world was handed. And what did they do? They put aside all difference and says, we need to destroy Hitler. We will discuss what comes after when we destroy Hitler. So they destroy Hitler. They have the Nuremberg trials. All the Nazis are either assassinated, commit suicide, or they're judged and executed. The UN is established. New charters of international relations are established. New weapons like the nuclear bombs are developed. Finally, the Cold War begins in the 1950s. And what happened? The British and the American side went this way, and the Russians went this way. And for many years, they had that division. Okay? So the discussion of what the world was going to look like after World War II was had after World War II was over. And that's what we need to think about at the national level with U.S. politics. What's going to happen here in the USA in terms of what type of a Biden administration we want? We can have the discussion after the Biden election because we have a clear and present danger to the US democracy. We have a clear and present danger to US democratic institutions. We have a clear and present danger to the health of the country with COVID. We have a clear and present danger to the economy with the fall of the economy. We have a clear and present danger to immigrants, to Muslims, to people of color in this country. We have the possibility that if this man gets reelected, in the future, he's been testing, he's been doing trial balloons with mercenary soldiers without patches, border patrol tactical units in Seattle, arresting citizens, just throwing them into a car and taking them away. That was a trial balloon. The idea that this cannot happen here is ludicrous. It's crazy. No nation is beyond the ability of a loon, a strong man taking power through military power. There's nothing guaranteeing that. Okay? The only guarantee that we have is voting with the hope that the election is not stolen, with the hope that we are strong enough, if we do beat him in the election, to be able to overcome him not wanting to leave the White House. There's a lot of variables here that we're not taking into account. So right now, the clear and present danger is we need to take him out. Because whether you believe in universal healthcare or don't, public housing or don't, free education or not so free education, left or center politics, you're not going to get any of that if Trump is still the president. So it is in our collective interest, those that like Kamala, those that don't like her, those that hate her. It is in our collective interest, as if it was the collective interest of Churchill, Stalin, and Roosevelt, to take this guy out. That's the primordial thing. If you don't vote, you just voted Trump. It's just that simple, whether you like it or not. If you don't vote, you're going to repeat what happened with the black people and the Bernie people who did not vote for Hillary Clinton and who made the difference. We would have won. Hillary Clinton got 3 million people. She was obviously the majority candidate. In any other democracy in the world, we would have President Clinton. She didn't win. Literally, we're talking about 0.5 to 0.7% differences in some states. A difference that could have been completely wiped out if a lot of black people and a lot of Bernie progressive people would have gone out to vote. We can't make that mistake again because we're so angry that once again the DLC and once again the Democratic, National Conference, etc., didn't get didn't give us the candidate we want, or they stole it. We can deal with that later. If we were able to put on the table all of these type of national changes with protests regarding George Floyd, we can pressure Kamala Harris. We can pressure Biden. And Biden and Kamala Harris are a lot more pressurable and are a lot more likely to bend to pressure than somebody like Trump, who thrives on fighting people on the street and causing division between those people and whites. Kamala Harris is willing to be pressured and listened to on a whole bunch of police issues, criminality issues, prison reform issues, drug issues, policing issues, police brutality issues. We can have a conversation with her. She knows about this. She's a prosecutor. And she's somebody that generally is in agreement as a black woman that black people shouldn't be treated like shit. Okay? So we can have that discussion and pressure her. And if she doesn't get it, we can throw ourselves on the street just like we're doing for Trump. We can do that after. But first and foremost, the election needs to be won. So I'm going to be voting in November 3rd for Biden and Kamala. I don't hate them. I don't like a lot of things about Biden. I don't like that in his past he was very friendly with Southern segregationists. I don't like that for many years he was essentially, if a neutral character, sometimes slightly in favor of the elites and in favor of the system that oppresses working class people and people of color. I don't like that. I also recognize that at the very least in the last 10 years, the Biden that we have in the last 10 years during the Obama years is not the Biden that existed when he was 20, when he was 30, when he was 40. Obviously, the man has grown with life. Maybe he's learned something from other working class people. Maybe because he's from Scranton. Maybe he's learned from other black officials and people who have talked to him. Maybe he's read some books. Maybe he had really good, insightful conversations with Michelle and with Barack Obama. Things that have changed his perspective. I think everybody has a right to, every 5 or 10 years, has a right to maybe change their record from the past and say, listen, I was that way when I was 20, but I'm not this way now. I was a lot more leftist than I am now. I'm not center. I'm center left or soft moderate left. Let's put it that way. but I'm definitely not what I was when I was 18 or 19. And you are not the same that you were 19 or 20. I'm 41 now. So give Biden a chance to try to change his ways. For those that don't know, his official platform for the party, the Democratic Party, is called the Bernie Biden platform. That means Bernie Sanders and his team sat down with Biden's people and they came to agreement on some things and didn't come to agreement on other things. You know, a person who wins the primary doesn't have to sit down with the loser and say, listen, I don't need to listen to you. I mean, he could have been like Hillary and just picked Tim Kaine, pick somebody else, but he didn't. He actually sat down and said, I need the Bernie voters. I want them. I want them on my camp. What do I need to do to get them on my camp? And he's put out a platform that is quite generous. They're right when they say that it literally is the most progressive platform that has existed in the history of the Democratic Party. So there is a reason beyond the fact that we have a fascist that we have to remove. That is the primordial goal. You could give me a platform with a piece of shit, but I will still vote for Biden and for Kamala Harris because I'll take a piece of shit over fascism. Let me say that again. I will take a piece of shit over fascism because I can live in a piece of shit. I can walk the street in a piece of shit. I won't have people knocking on my doors asking me about my political statements on Facebook, under a piece of shit. Under a fascist regime, people will come after me for what I've written on Facebook just because I'm in disagreement with conservatives. So I will vote for a piece of shit over fascism, okay? But we don't. That's the great thing about it. We don't have a piece of shit on the other side. We actually have a pretty progressive platform. We get 50 to 75% of what we wanted with Bernie anyway. And the other 40 to 25% that we're not getting, hey, we can pressure them. We can protest it. We can do writing campaigns. We can elect progressive leaders to Congress that will also put pressure on the White House to have to bend to their will, because if not, they won't sign legislation that they want. Negotiations, horse trading. That's part of politics. Again, it's 330 million people in this country. We want a lot of leftist stuff. We're only going to get about 40 to 50. It's negotiations. Somebody wants 100, will sell something for 100, the other one wants it for 70. You meet in the middle, 85. Okay? So that's how it works. It does not work with having the person you wanted. Regarding Kamala Harris, why didn't he go with somebody else? First of all, he couldn't pick Elizabeth Warren. It would have been a totally white ticket. He was going to lose the African American and not white vote. That means the election's lost. That's why he can't vote for somebody like her. Even though I like Elizabeth Warren. Yeah, no problem. He had to vote for a woman because, again, historical reasons. He knows that the woman vote is important, especially to try to rip away women voters that went Trump. He needs to offer them something. Why? Why should I vote for you and not vote for Trump again? Here we go. We have a woman voter. And for a lot of women, whether we like it or not, that's enough. Whether we like it or not, that's another issue. He needed to vote for an African-American woman. You guys are not going to want to hear this, but this is part of the truth too. She's an attractive woman. Attractive nature, physical attraction matters in politics. If Quasimodo is running for office, but he happens to be the best candidate ever, guess what? Quasimodo is not winning. He's not winning because he's ugly. Kennedy was an attractive guy. Obama was an attractive guy. Bill Clinton was a charming guy. Fidel Castro was a charming guy. It matters. In politics, it does matter. So you had Susan Rice, you had Stacey Abrams, and I think there was another lady who was being considered, but she had baggage because she was pro-Cuba back in the 70s. That's not going to fly, and you need to win Florida. So she's not going to be a candidate. So you had 3 black women. Stacey Abrams, who is not the most, I'm not going to say she's ugly, but she's not the most attractive woman, and she's not really well known beyond Georgia. So she wasn't going to bring him or deliver anything that he needed. Put that to the side. Susan Rice is a very intelligent woman, a very capable woman, a woman that has a distinguished career, but she's kind of like her personality is down. She's an intellectual person, but she's kind of like a down person, and she doesn't bring anything to the table. She wasn't exciting to a certain group of people out there. Of the 3 candidates, 3 African-American women that were left, Kamala was the most attractive one, was the one with the most distinguished career as a attorney general and as a senator. And she is a fighter. She's pugilistic. She knows how to debate. She's quick on her feet. Not only that, but she knows how to snap people. She knows how to burn people, and that matters in this kind of like soundbite culture. If she is able to bring one of those little swipes and snaps against Pence or Trump, that matters because people like voting for winners. Sadly, people don't accept that too. Democrats have lost a lot of elections because of that. They like to vote for winners. So when you see somebody kicking the hell out of somebody verbally, you go, that's my girl. I want to vote for her. And you get the vote. So you needed somebody like Kamala Harris. I've never said I am totally 100% in favor of all Kamala Harris's politics. I'm not sure because I haven't totally researched everything about her to know if she agrees with me on everything. I understand there may be some politics that we disagree on. But it seems from the few conversations I've seen that she generally supports 50 to 70% of what I agree with. I'll take 50. What did I say about taking a piece of shit over fascism? I will take 50% of what I want, have a good 4 years of peace because we remove fascism, and we can continue in the 4 years of their administration and hopefully reelect them or reelect another ticket and continue in the next other 4 years and go forward. Republicans know about this very well. That's why in this administration they made sure to put Supreme Court justices and to appoint thousands of state Supreme Court and other federal justices to the bench because they play the long game. They know that they're going to be out of power in 4 years, but guess who's not going to be out of power in 4 years? The justices for the next 20, 30 years. So they get to control politics in the nation. As long as they kept ideological, they didn't like Trump, but they didn't betray him, and they still have not betrayed him. Why? Because the justices matter. Because overturning Roe v. Wade matters. Because overturning gay rights matters. Because making sure that Citizens United stays the law so that they can keep funding campaigns matters. They played the long game. So while Republicans are unified, even when the guy that they have is a buffoon and they know it, they still unified. They know how to play the long game so they can keep control. And Democrats, we haven't learned that because we're still fighting whether or not you and I agree on universal health care. I'll be voting for Biden and Kamala. I hope you too.